Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Drea and Britt with motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome Maria Bearson to the podcast. She is a certified online functional health coach, a nutrition coach, and the founder of Bearson Fit, where she helps women lose fat, build strength, and create sustainable habits that fit into real life. Maria is known for taking a practical, tailored approach to coaching, combining evidence-based nutrition, mindset work, and strength training to help women feel strong and confident without extreme dieting. Maria got into the field after experiencing firsthand how confusing and extreme the fitness industry can be. I'm really excited about diving into this in episode 1, so make sure you check out that episode. She became passionate about simplifying the process and teaching women how to fuel their bodies properly, move their bodies with intention, and develop a healthy mindset around food. Maria is a wife and mom of 2 young kids, so she understands the challenges of balancing motherhood, business, and personal health and wellness. And outside of coaching, she loves strength training, spending time outdoors with her family, running the Mom Walk Collective events, and living the fun but balanced lifestyle she teaches. We are so excited for you guys to learn from Maria today. Maria, welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We're going to be learning so much from you because I know that you have quite the experience with different arenas in your life when it comes to nutrition and different arenas. We're going to be starting to talk about your story because you actually were a bodybuilding pro for a while. And so let's just start from the beginning, because as you'll share throughout this episode, you've had ups and downs with your own body and your own mindset. And I'd love to take this episode to just dive into them because I think so many people are going to relate to different pieces of your story. So how did you get into fitness in the first place? And then before you became a bodybuilding pro, what was your mindset around food? How did you look at food? Did you even think about food? Did you eat whatever you wanted as a teenager? Start at the beginning and help us understand where you came from.
Yeah, so I guess let's roll back all the way to high school. I was fairly active in my high school years. I played basketball and volleyball and just was always out running and dabbled in a little bit of lifting weights and that sort of thing, but it was nothing, like progressive overload. It didn't know a whole lot about it, but it was something that interested me. Fast forward to college, same thing. Just have always loved working out and just being active. And what really kind of got me into the bodybuilding world is my brother Tony had competed. So I got to watch him sort of go through the whole dieting phase and what is involved with bodybuilding. But it wasn't until I actually went and saw him compete. And it wasn't seeing him compete. It was for the very first time seeing women up on stage back in, gosh, it might have been 2008 or 2009. And I was just like, my gosh. And it wasn't necessarily the physiques of these women that I was seeing. It was the confidence that they were just radiating on stage. And it was so, so cool to see them in that position. And I just said to myself, one day I want to do that.
So how old were you at this time?
So I would have been 18, around 18 years old. And so I guess we can fast forward a little bit. I was started getting more into strength training, even in college. I went to UW-Madison. I dabbled in some different women's strength training classes, and even they had some restorative classes and yoga and different things like that. And just gotten more familiar with the idea of progressive overload and strength training in general. But it wasn't until 2017 where I really started to, all right, let's find a coach. Let's actually put this into action. And I started a training program and started actually at that point. That was when I started tracking macros at the time and just learning so much at that time about food and how to fuel myself properly for not only workouts, but how to also live a little bit and also, stay on track, and just what it meant to have a proper nutrition plan. But for training for a bodybuilding show, it's just so much different than your average lifestyle, right? So
How long is that training period from when you start?
I prepped for 6 months.
Wow.
So for 6 months, I was putting food in containers. I was tracking every single calorie I ate. I'm a type of person, I'm very social. I like to go out. I like to enjoy my cocktails. It was like zero alcohol, zero. There was a time I remember in Madison, if anybody's familiar with the Tornado Room, it's a steakhouse, going out with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and another couple. And I brought my own containers to Tornado Room. It was that strict for me because I
Yeah.
did not want to veer off the plan, kind of afraid that I might lose progress if I do that.
Do you feel like your mindset at the time, because you were like, you had a goal, you had something you were working toward, you had the nutrition was going to dictate how you did there. Do you feel like that was hard for you at the time, or was it pretty easy?
Hard in the sense that, like, yes, I'm weighing it, it's all consuming. It was what I thought about every single minute of the day for 6 months, which ended up being 7 months because I won my pro card and continued on after that for a little bit. And so hard in that sense, but not hard in the sense of it's all or nothing, right? So this is the reason I became a coach, is because I did not do so well after my shows when that goal was over. But during that time when I was, just hyper focused on the goal, that was pretty easy for me. It was after the fact that I kind of spiraled.
How many shows did you do? So like what was the total time frame that you were doing a show and then maybe taking a break and doing a show and you got your pro card? So then were there more shows after that? So what was your total time frame of like living in this?
Yes, or the time frame itself, I started prepping in the fall of 2017, and it was 6 months before my first show that I had, and it was what's called an OCB bodybuilding show. It's just one of the many federations. It's a natural bodybuilding show that are out there. And then the second one was 3 weeks later, and that was the WNBF, is what that was called. And then in order to win the show, so I say, oh, I got my pro card, but anybody who's not familiar with bodybuilding probably doesn't know. So you have to win your class, which is comprised of, for women, it's your height. So it's short, medium, and tall. And there can be up to, 20 people in one class. And then the short, medium, and tall winners all compete against each other for the single pro card. So that's how you win the pro card. So I did that both in the WNBF, and then I did that again in the OCB show. I had gotten a call from someone a few weeks after that said, would you be willing to compete at the pro level at a pro show? And I said, like, it took me a while to say yes to it because I knew that I would have to compete for a while, and I had these concerts lined up and all these things going on, that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to be dialed in for another month. But I did, and I won that show as well.
Oh, cool.
It's
I'm sure
amazing.
that was, yeah, an incredible experience. So then you did that show. And so how did your mindset shift change? Were you like, okay, now I can eat whatever I want finally, and I don't have these restrictions. And so like, tell us about how did everything change? I'm sure your workouts were very strict, probably hours in the gym before that. Now you can go back to a lifestyle of whatever you want. So tell us about that journey.
Yeah. So I feel like this is the most important part of the conversation, and where I need to get so real, because when I think back of that, I mean, it was such an incredible part of my journey and my life, and everyone was coming over and complimenting me. And it's like, it's so much hard work and discipline and all these things. And then I have my last show, but leading up to that, months before I stopped, I was messaging my coach and I was just like, but can we talk about what happens after the fact? Because I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. I'm just going to gain all this weight back and I don't know what to do. And I'm very much type A type person. I'm looking ahead, and I want to see the future and know what the plan is and have everything dialed in. And my coach, unfortunately, at the time was just like, no, we don't need to worry about that. Let's just think about that after the fact. It's something that I just like weighs on me so heavily because I knew that I needed more support than what I was getting at the time. So after the fact, it was like almost instantly where I didn't have this goal. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to eat this cheeseburger now and I'm going to eat the fries. And then, you know what? I am so hungry because I'm at 8% body fat. I have like nothing left on me, which is not sustainable. Right. And I am so hungry and my hormones are tanked and just craving things all the time. And it was just like I had this insatiable hunger. And I'm going to say like I didn't have like a binge eating disorder, but I was binge eating a lot. And I mean, I would have like some cereal and then I would have some more and then I would like go get ice cream later and then it was just constant. And I felt so shameful, so guilty. I gained 30 pounds within months. I'm only 5'2", and I gained all of the weight back plus some, and it was all body fat because I had consumed so many calories in a very short period of time. So you can imagine, working so hard for 6 months, getting all these compliments, and then going through that. And that was really like just the hardest part of my life at the time.
Did your coach provide any guidance during this season, or was it like, you're done bodybuilding, so we're not working together anymore?
She did, but it wasn't the right type of support. And this is why when I started coaching, I was like, I started to figure it out after a while, right? But I knew that I needed something in mindset. I know that mindset is so important as it relates to fat loss, to how you feel about yourself, to, speaking kind words to yourself and all these things. And I had none of it at the time and just knew that I needed to get that. And once I started doing that for myself, also getting certified in mindset coaching, that was really what changed things for me, is understanding the language that needs to be said to clients to be able to have lasting change. So they're speaking more positively to themselves. They're not, like they can catch themselves early uh, if they're going to the pantry and just like taking a step back and asking themselves some questions and just doing some internal reflection. And I didn't have that type of support, unfortunately. And like, I don't blame anyone, if you're not certified in that or if you just don't know, that person was doing the best that they could at the time. So I don't want to, say bad things about that coach or anything, but it was just, I didn't have what I needed at the time.
You talked though about how your body was almost in like starvation mode from going through that experience of having the strict diet and high workout plan and stuff. So I think this is a common question that a lot of people struggle with is, how do you recognize emotional eating and just kind of, in your case, like the freedom to have what you want versus like your body's actually saying, no, we are starving and we need this nutrition, eat more, please. So how do people navigate with that mindset wise, but also understanding the triggers that their bodies are actually physically sending them?
Yeah, I think in order to answer that question, you really need to back up and look at the individual and ask them, are you eating mostly whole foods throughout your day? And like, what is your diet comprised of? What and how is it structured throughout your day? I mean, are you trying to fast all day and then you're so hungry and then in the evening that you just eat, 2,000 calories worth of food in one sitting? So I think it's hard to answer it without understanding what they're currently eating and how their day to day looks. With that said, if they are are eating mostly whole foods and, they're prioritizing protein, they're getting fiber sources in and all of that, and they're still having cravings, there may be some deeper layers and deeper things that we need to dive into in that case. And this is one thing, not to get like too into coaching, but I think it's so important to track additional things like how are your stress levels? Was there a trigger that happened with that? That's like a mindset thing. Also, digestion. Are you going poop every single day? This is something that's very important. And how do those look? Because if you aren't absorbing the nutrients that you're eating, even though you're eating very clean, if you're not absorbing them, then there's an issue that we need to look further into.
So at this point in your story, you had gained that extra 30 pounds. You were having a lot of shame. Then what?
Yeah. I started YouTubing things and looking up different things. And this is actually something I don't talk a lot about, but I think it's very important is I started just doing my own research on how to get myself out of where I was. And, I'm literally like typing in how to stop binge eating after dieting shows or just like as basic as it comes. And that's one thing where I think like there's so much information out there it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, but it can also be a wonderful thing too if you are using it in the right way that feels good for your nervous system. I would say, if it feels good to you and it helps you, then that's a wonderful thing, if it feels aligned with you and your energy.
At this point, what were you doing for workouts? Did you kind of give up on them? Were you still doing like average person strength workouts? Were you still lifting heavy?
Yeah, I was still lifting heavy. I wasn't as structured because I was in such a hard spot at the time, like right after my shows. I will say too, with the heap of hormone shifts that were happening, not only due to the surplus of calories and the increase blood sugar. I mean, my blood sugar was always over the place and just everything that was going on at the time, I would get in very intense migraines. The worst that, I don't really deal with those, but at the time, for like 3 weeks, I remember it was the worst migraines I have ever had in my life, where I would just be sitting on the gym floor and I would text my boyfriend at the time saying, if I end up in the hospital, I just want you to know this is what I'm experiencing right now. And I just have to sit and lay there. And it just so, again, debilitating. So it was hard to stick to a workout, like workouts at the time, because of mindset and because of shame and guilt, because of where I was at.
So how long did you sit in this season before you were able to start making mindset shifts for yourself and find a healthy weight? So let's go into like the next part of your story of how did you go from this extra 30 pounds to now feeling healthy? How long were you there? And then like what was the tipping point for you?
Yeah, I was probably in this sulking bad mindset for I would say like at least six months. It was like, but then it was like I would start to have these little wins where I would get, there were 4 days where I got 4 days of workouts in and I was able to be consistent with my nutrition and it was mostly whole foods and I didn't stop to get fast food, which by the way was never something that I did until after my shows. It was
Hmm.
just crazy. And I started tracking the tiniest things that I would do throughout the week, which I think is such a great takeaway for people who are looking to just get started somewhere, is to give yourself credit for the things that you are doing, because there's always going to be more that we can be doing. But to give yourself credit for the things that you are doing throughout your week that are putting you in the positive direction.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
love
that's what
that.
I started doing. I mean, whether it was drinking 100 ounces of water or, again, like not going through the drive-through this week and eating mostly whole foods and all those things.
Were you tracking your macros still at this time?
No, because it was very difficult for me to go back to a place where I was weighing every single ounce of food. But I will say, once I started to get back on track and started feeling better with myself, I did hire another coach because I thought that that accountability was just so important for me. I was already at a decent spot at the time, but I hired another coach because I was actually considering doing another bodybuilding show, which I didn't end up doing, and I'm so thankful for. But she helped me to get everything just to be more consistent in my day to day.
Okay, so you're saying that you started just finding these little wins every day and kind of baby steps back toward health, right? But so when did you kind of discover mindset coaching for yourself? Was it through this coach that you worked with, or is this something that through your research you kind of discovered and was like, oh my gosh, I think maybe it's not necessarily my workouts or fully my nutrition, it's actually my mindset? When did you kind of discover this shift?
I always knew that, I mean, mindset played a huge role, and I knew that I was the one that was doing the self sabotage, and that everything that I was doing was because of how I perceived myself. So I knew that, but I didn't get into or find the coach that I was really interested in, what she had to offer until 2020. So that happened in 2018 when I was competing, and did all of that, and then it wasn't until 2020 that I got certified in the mindset coaching.
Okay. So at this point, so you hired this coach. You said you were kind of already in a decent mindset and path, but then you hired this coach. And so what do you feel like the balance was for you to figure out what your how do you know what your healthy set point is for your body? Like if people are just they're just uncomfortable, but they're also like I can't lose weight and I feel like my body is stuck here and I feel like it's genetics versus this is how what I crave and society puts a lot of pressure on what we think we should look like. So, like, what is a healthy goal when somebody is trying to lose weight to set to know that this is where their body's like happy place is, the like percentage of body fat or things like that? Like, how did you know what your goal should be since you had been on such an extreme in the past?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And you know, again, I said that I was at 8% body fat. I knew that that was so unrealistic long term. For me, I just knew based on my activity levels and my dieting history and just how I feel comfortable within myself that, around that, I would say anywhere between 16 to 20% body fat would be, and hopefully for me at the time, because I wasn't looking to bear children at the time. And there's all sorts of things that really play a role in where you should be at body fat wise, and also what how your body responds to that too. But for me personally, I felt most comfortable between that 16 to 20%, where it was like, yes, now I can go out and enjoy a Friday night fish fry, and I can do this stuff. And I can also, for me, it's so important to have calories as high as possible while still being happy, in your current body. And it's like to think we're always in this dieting mindset, and I think it's a place that I try to get clients out of because it's just a natural thing that society tells us we need to be eating less and doing more and weighing less, and really like pulling back and asking yourself, like, does that make you happy though? Like, yes, you're at the lowest weight and the leanest you've ever been, but are you happy restricting yourself so much at that level? And are you willing to sacrifice that? And I think it's like it's a question to ask anyone that is looking to lose the weight is why, number one, is this an internal thing where you're going to feel more confident and happy with yourself? Are there, instead of focusing on the weight loss, shifting that to what current habits do you have in your life right now that you aren't happy with? What are you currently doing that you don't enjoy about yourself? Because that is ultimately where we need to start, not, hey, let's see if we can weigh less. Because that's,
Right.
I mean, there's many ways that we can weigh less on the scale. You could stop lifting weights and lose muscle and weigh less on the scale if you wanted. You could starve yourself of water for a few days and probably, you know, go down for a little bit. and not have salt in your diet, which I don't recommend, by the way. But and there's all sorts of things that we could do to manipulate the scale.
Yeah. Well, we're going to save diving more into the details and FAQs of weight loss for another episode. But now, to kind of fast forward, now you're a coach, right? And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your coaching looks like for somebody who is maybe struggling with something like this in their season of life?
Yeah. So most of my clients do come to me for weight loss. And my clients check in with me on a weekly basis, and they essentially answer every week a series of questions that I have for them that is kind of based on them and what's going on in their mindset for from the last week, and like how did the last week go on on a scale of 1 to 5, why, what obstacles did you face, how did you or did you not overcome them, just some like basic questions that I can get them to answer and have some foundation of where their mindset is. But in addition, I do have them track things like digestion, sleep, energy, mood, all these things that play a role in fat loss. And I do have most clients track, at least for a period of time, calories and protein, but also we track things like their weight and measurements and pictures. And also if like there's certain medications that they're taking, all of that stuff that potentially plays a role in fat loss as well. And really, when they check in with me, I will send them a voice memo in return that is usually around like 10 minutes long about the past week, what I recommend, things for the future. I may have some questions for them to get back to me on. And then if they have questions throughout the week, they are more than welcome to respond or to ask me questions. And, it can be a back and forth conversation.
For sure. I love that you're touching on all of it, right? And the accountability piece, like you said, when you went back to having a coach was because you really needed somebody to hold you accountable, but also give you some perspective that maybe you hadn't thought about. What about the workout aspect of your program? Is it something where you're kind of figuring out what would make sense in their life and then they are doing that independently? Do you work with people like a personal trainer? Tell us about that aspect.
Yeah. So I'm not personally a personal trainer. A lot of my clients that come to me they already have some type of workout program. However, if they do not, it is absolutely a part of what we do. So I have like 7 or 8 different recommendations, apps, and if they don't want to pay for an app, YouTube videos and different things. I know you guys have put out over the years many free content for videos and whatnot, but tons of options for them. But the point, I think, for anybody who isn't working out or doesn't do that stuff very regularly, it's like there's always going to be something for everyone. And the idea is to just be moving your body in a way
Yeah.
that you haven't done before.
I love that. Well, I'm excited to continue with 3 more episodes with you because there's so many questions to ask, not only about your journey, even continually. So, thank you for sharing your journey and being so transparent and honest because you have a unique journey compared to what I would say most people have not been bodybuilding pros, but a lot of people have tried a
Mhm.
diet and they've lost weight and then they gain weight and then they feel that shame that you felt and then they try a different diet and it's just this cycle. And so in our next episode, we're really going to just continue this conversation, diving into diets and different fads that are out there and FAQs that people have around weight loss. And we are excited for you to continue to give your expertise so that these people can feel hope again and feel their mindset shifting from desperation to excitement about what their future holds. So thank you, Maria.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.